Black has just played bishop b5, skewering the queen and rook, but Capablanca had something in store. He was already looking ahead to the endgame and played an absolutely mind-boggling move. If you would like to pause, what do you think Capablanca played here? What's up, guys? Welcome back to game 2, where we're going through this book, Capablanca's Best Chess Endgames. This one features a knight and a bishop against a rook. Very interesting dynamic that you're going to learn a lot from, but also features a brilliant queen sacrifice that leads to this endgame. He literally sacrificed his queen just to get this endgame because he knew it was going to be favorable for him. The guy was an absolute monster. Let's go ahead and take a look at this game. And by the way, he was still 12 years old when he played this game, okay? Let's take a look. So d4, d5, and quickly we're going to go through the whole game, but we're going to focus primarily on the end game. I am going to have 9 more critical principles for you guys to pay attention to. Let's take a look. So Capablanca is white, plays d4. Black is putting some pressure on. And Capablanca plays what's called the Kali-Zukertort system. So the Kali system is when you put your pawn on d4, your pawn on e3, your knight on f3, and a lot of times you'll play c3. It's like the London pawn pyramid, except in the Kali, you keep your bishop inside. Instead of your bishop being out here, it stays back, right? If you, instead of playing c3, play b3 and fianchetto the bishop here, this is called the Kali-Zukertort system, okay? And it's a pretty good setup. I actually like this bishop here because a lot of times you jump your knight into e5 and the bishop supports it. Anyway, side note there. That's what he's playing, okay? He brings out the knight. They trade the pawns. He brings out the bishop. Everybody's developing their pieces. They're castling. Both of these are good players, right? They're playing good moves. Knight to h5 is a little bit of an interesting move. Usually you don't want to put your knights on the edge of the board, but in this case, Black is headed for f4. He wants to target this bishop, which would be quite annoying for Capablanca, and so he plays g3. Now, if you're a beginner watching this, be careful moving the pawns in front of your king because you can regret those decisions. But Capablanca knows what he's doing, and in this case, it was worth it to control the square, okay? So he jumps the knight in. The knight goes back. There was an attack on it from the queen there. Okay, he plays f4. We get a trade. Knight to g4, queen to e2, queen to b6. Black is lining up on the diagonal here, putting pressure on d4. So Capablanca defends with the knight. Bishop d7, a3, king h8. He attacks the knight. It goes back. Queen f2. We get some maneuvering around. And we're going to get to the interesting part. Now, Capablanca is being a little bit aggressive here, but Black's pieces are kind of blocked off from really attacking the king easily. So he can get away with this kind of play. Queen e3, rook g8, rook e1, okay. You get a trade. The knight jumps in. He trades this off. We're getting close to the critical moment in the game. He trades here. Okay, now one thing I want you to pay attention to is this bishop, even though there's a lot of pieces in the way, it is lined up on Black's king. Always want to keep those things in the back of your mind because you never know when something can happen that can open up the diagonal, right? So, e6. That's exactly what he does. He gets a fork and he's setting up, hey, if I can get both of these pawns moved, this is going to be very, very dangerous for the Black king. For example, if Black were to take this, you simply sacrifice your rook and guess what? d5, check, and there you go. You're going to win the queen and Black can't do anything about it. Basically, the game is over, okay? So already very dangerous position for Black. So what does Black do? Bishop to b5, like I mentioned at the start of the video, attacking the queen and the rook. If you would like to pause, what did Capablanca play here? That's correct. If you found it, good job. Queen takes b5. He sacrifices his queen for a bishop, which, okay, if all you're getting is a bishop, that's obviously not good enough. That's a bad trade. But he's not just getting a bishop. He is, first and foremost, opening up this diagonal for his bishop. So now he plays d5 check. And it turns out this is a very hard threat to deal with. In fact, the only move that Black can really play is rook g7. So now Capablanca has the option to take here, to take here. He could do something else, right? So he's going to get a lot of pieces back for that queen. And he probably calculated all the way down to the endgame that we're about to see, okay, which is this. Takes the knight. Black plays h6 to defend the pawn over here. Knight to d4. And Black now plays the best move on the board, sacrificing the queen back for the rook. Now, you might say, Nelson, why would he sacrifice his queen back? That doesn't make sense, right? Well, here's the deal. If you move the queen off of this diagonal, for example, you take this pawn, you've now opened up your back rank, and rook e8 check is just a killer move. Because if you move your king, I get a queen. I've blocked off your rook now. And if you try to take me, of course, I just take back and get a queen. So basically, white's going to get their queen back if you do that. So because of that, this queen has to stay guarding that square so that you have enough pieces controlling it, which means you can't go here, you can't go stay there, you can't go here. The only move is queen d7. The problem with queen d7 is now the knight jumps over here on f5. And there's actually this really amazing line that I'm going to show you guys. So he's attacking this. Queen takes. Check forces the king to come up. The rook comes down, forces the queen to move. The king is now in line with the rook, which is not a good situation. So bishop to d4, check. King comes up. Rook check. The king is on the move. And if you would like to pause the video now, what can white do to finish off the game in beautiful style? If you had a chance to look at that, the move is knight to g3 check. You will notice that the king cannot run backwards. You can't go here, so you have to go to h4. And then an amazing sacrifice, rook to f4 check. The king is trapped, so the only move is take. But now you've opened up this rook, and this, my friends, is a beautiful checkmate. The king has nowhere to go. Look at that. The rook and the knight, the king, the pawn, like amazing stuff, right? So all that to say, going way back here, all that to say, if you don't sacrifice your queen now for the rook, you're going to probably get mated in the next few moves. It was even worse, okay? And so his opponent actually correctly identifies all of that stuff and sacrifices the queen. The rook takes. He takes the pawn. And after this trade, king goes to h7, we now have the knight and the bishop against the rook, okay? Now, as far as the principles, I actually missed some of them, so let me go ahead and circle back here. Principle number one, which I should have mentioned earlier, when he sacrificed the queen, let me actually just show you. I'll just backtrack for 1 second. When he sacrificed the queen, you don't always have to checkmate when you sacrifice pieces. Capablanca was sacrificing the queen knowing that he was just going to go into an endgame where he was going to have a favorable position, and that's totally fine. If you see a sacrifice that leads you to a favorable endgame, you should probably do it, okay? All right, so back to this position. We have the bishop against the knight. The bishop and the knight against the rook. In general, the bishop and the knight are going to be better than the rook. Now, we also have this pawn here, which is principle number 2. Passed pawns in the endgame are a long-term positional advantage. I think we talked about this in episode number 1, but the passed pawn always has to be guarded by either the rook or the king because there's no pawns that can stop it. So even though we have 4 pawns against 4 pawns, they are not equal because this guy is not the same as this guy. This is not a passed pawn because if you try to push it, I just take you with my pawn. Okay, so this is a very significant feature in the position. All right. All right. So in this position, what do you think Capablanca played and why? All right, if you had a chance to think about that, this brings us to principle number 3, which is you need to keep your opponent's king cut off from the most important section of the board. In this case, this is the most important thing. So we do not want to allow the king to just come over here and take our pawn. So the move that Capablanca plays is knight to e7, and you will notice the knight is controlling the light squares, the bishop is controlling the dark square. We have essentially made a wall that the king cannot pass. Very, 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 very powerful move. You need to understand why this is so important, okay? So he plays knight e7. So black plays rook f8. He's obviously threatening to come down here with a fork. Capablanca plays king g2. We get h5. Black's going to try to make their own pass pawn, which is smart at the end of the game. He pushes. Black pushes. We get a trade. And right here, Capablanca plays the move bishop to e5. Now, the author mentions something very interesting here. He mentions that king g3 would not be a good move for the following reason. King g3 would allow rook to f3 check. After you take the pawn, the rook now comes over here. And Irving Chernev, love the guy so much. His books are my favorite, by the way. But he does make a mistake right here. And he says this would be a lot of counterplay for black if this was what were to happen. He actually misses one thing. Now, it's not exactly fair because, of course, I have the engine from today, which is extremely powerful that Irving Chernev did not have. But there is a move here that actually makes this very, very, very good for white. What is the move for white? Well, if you had a chance to look at that, this brings us to principle number 4, which is when you have a passed pawn that's being stopped by a rook, you want to be thinking about creating a blockade to shut off the rook. Okay, so for example, if you just try to push your pawn right away, the rook is going to come behind and take it, and you're in trouble. Once you lose your pawn, you lose your advantage. You can see the eval bar says now it's just equal, right? But the move that the author of the book missed, and that Capablanca probably missed too, was bishop to d4. And what you were doing is saying, look, the only way you can stop this pawn is with your rook. The king is too far, right? You can do the little box trick. If the king can't step into the box, it's too far away. So the rook has to stop. You can't come down this way because your pawn is in the way. So the only way is to go from behind, but now there's a bishop in your way. And after I played knight f5, you can't get rid of the bishop. You don't have time to come around here. That's too far. We already talked about the king can't make it. There's no way to stop this pawn, and white is going to simply get a queen and win the game. So very, very clever move if you're not thinking about it, but bishop d4 to blockade the rook, very, very important that you understand that. Okay, so all that to say, that was just a little side tangent there, that king g3 would have actually been a very good move to just go ahead and immediately try to take this pawn because you didn't have to worry about rook f3. Okay, but in the game, Capablanca plays bishop to e5. He has his own plan in mind with bishop to e5. If you guys would like to pause, what do you think he's thinking of by playing this move? All right, if you had a chance to look at that, what he's trying to do is essentially push this pawn, bring the bishop to c7, and then get a queen. So if black is just not doing anything and is going to let him do it, he's going to push it here, he's going to bring his bishop down, and he's going to get a queen, and you have to sacrifice your rook. That's essentially what Capablanca is setting up. Okay, of course, black knows that, and he's going to try to not allow that. He plays king h6. He wants to get his king into the game, and so he's trying to, remember, the wall is there, right? You can't get through. So he's trying to come around this way, essentially. All right. D7, Capablanca's continuing with the plan. He's going to go here. He's going to force the trade. And so black says, no thanks. Rook to D8. And it actually looks like Capablanca blundered the pawn. He's going to lose the pawn. I mean, the rook's just going to take it. You can't defend it with your, like, what's he doing? Pause the video. What did Capablanca play next? All right, if you had a chance to look at that, this brings me to principle number 5. Tactics play a role in endgames too. Okay, a lot of people think tactics are like just in the middle game, and then once you get to the end game, you don't really have to think about tactics. No, tactics play a role here as well, and that is what Capablanca makes use of. He plays knight to g8 check, and his point is that if you take, I'm going to play bishop c7 like I wanted, and now I can get the queen. And that's exactly what happens in the game. Let's just talk quickly. If the king did try to run over and stop the pawn like this, he's going to play knight f6 to defend it. The king is not in time. The bishop's coming down, attacking the rook. Of course, it's defended. And if you move, I'm just going to get a queen and actually get 2 pieces out of the deal. So black instead takes the knight, and we get bishop c7, king g6, queen, and black is forced to take here, and we get a piece. Now, he has an extra piece. Great. Is the game over? No, absolutely not. And just because he's up a piece, you still have to be careful, and you still have to understand a few key things. So don't take it lightly that this is just an automatic win. This pawn is annoying. Black's king is going to be annoying. You have to figure out how to get rid of these pawns. Like, there's still a lot of endgame left to be played. All right, so black plays the move b5, and here Capablanca has to make a decision. Is he going to go forward and try to put pressure on this pawn with his king? Or is he going to run his king over this way and try to get over to these pawns? What do you think he played? You had a chance to look at that. He actually went this way. Now, there's nothing wrong with going after this pawn, but if black's king does this, and let's say he tries to just kind of blockade these guys and focuses on this, the issue now is that eventually the king is going to just kind of run here. And yes, this is probably still going to be a win for him. He could put his bishop like here, let's just say, and even if you lose this pawn, this is still a winning endgame, but maybe it's simpler the way he did it, right? Not allowing black's king to get so active, okay? So going back to the game, instead of going up this way, Capablanca runs this way. So king f2, king f5, king e3, king d3, king c3. He just runs all the way over. And yes, black's like, well, I have this pawn, I may as well use it. But of course, Capablanca is not worried about this. Bishop h4, followed by bishop to f2. Now, this brings me to principle number 6. When you have an extra piece at the end of the game, one of the best ways to use it, if you are given the opportunity, is to just sacrifice it for a pawn at a critical moment and go into a winning king and pawn ending. So what do I mean by that? If, for example, black at some point, let's just say a6 king b4, they decide to just run over here. Okay, we move our bishop. They go here, we take. They come here, we take. Uh-oh, they're going to get a queen. Who cares? Sacrifice your bishop, and now you have an easy win, right? This is a very good strategy with an extra piece at the end of the game. A lot of times that's the best way to use it. So just keep that in the back of your mind as a simple solution in a lot of cases, okay? Now, back to the game, black is going to be a little bit more tricky than that. They're not going to just go for such a simple line. Remember, his opponent is very, very good. But I wanted you to just be aware of that. So his opponent plays the move a5. We get b4. And black plays king e4. Now, pause the video. What move would you play in this position? All right. If you had a chance to look at that, I hope that you did not say that you would take this pawn. Because if you did, I regret to inform you that you just threw away the victory. Watch the eval bar when I take this. And now you have a draw. Okay, even though it shows a slight advantage, it's not. It is actually a drawn position. And some of you are probably thinking, Nelson, what are you talking about? I have 2 pawns. I have a bishop. I've got this blockaded. I have a passed pawn. My king is in a good position. How in the world could this possibly not be a win? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's talk about it. So this is actually a well-known position with a bishop and a flank pawn. Here's what you have to remember. When you have a bishop and a flank pawn and a king against an opponent's king, the bishop needs to be able to control the queening square. If it does not, and black's able to blockade their king in the corner, it is a draw. Okay, so I'm going to actually do something here. All right, so here's a different position. I've just created this. Same kind of situation. We have a pawn, we have a bishop. This is a draw, okay? And I want to show you why. We push our pawn, black moves here. We try to come up, black moves here. If we ever push the pawn again, we have now stalemated the opponent. They don't have any moves. You can't do that. You say, okay, I won't do that. I'll move my bishop instead. Nope, that's also a stalemate. They have no moves. You can't do that. You say, okay, we'll just wait a second, and now we'll go check, because it's not a stalemate if I'm checking them, right? They move in the corner. What are you going to do? If you go here, stalemate, they have no moves. Okay, let's go here instead. Stalemate, they have no moves. Say, okay, fine. I'll move my king back. My pawn is still defended. Everything's good. Right now they have a move. Great. What are you going to do? You can't push it. They just take you. Can you ever get your king to defend that? No, you cannot. Can you ever use your bishop to defend that square? No, you cannot. Bishops cannot change color. There is no way to win the game, right? And the best case scenario is we already talked about. You could just get a stalemate, right? But that doesn't help you. That's not a win, right? There is no way to win, okay? That's important that you understand this, because if you're ever in an endgame like Capablanca was here, you will know, don't take the pawn. Don't take the pawn. Like, the fact that you still have an extra pawn here and there's some other stuff on the board doesn't change anything, because once black plays king d5, they're just going to run. Like, they're literally just going to run into the corner, and you can't stop them. Okay, once they get there, like, it doesn't matter. They're just going to sit there. You can't win. Okay? So, going back here, very clever trap that was set by the opponent. Now, of course, Capablanca doesn't fall for that. He plays bishop to b6. King moves here. He goes king to d3. King goes here. He goes back. King goes here. And now Capablanca plays a very simple move. And this brings me to principle number 8, which is this. Waiting moves win endgames. Okay? So what's a waiting move in chess? A waiting move is kind of like a pass. You can't pass in chess. When it's your turn, you have to play a move. But sometimes you want to pass. Like, it would be nice if you could just say, you know what, I want you to move, because if you move, you're going to have to play a bad move, and that's going to help me, right? Since you can't pass, what you can do if you have an extra piece, and bishops and rooks are very good at this, by the way, you just move them. So that's what Capablanca does here. He says, you know what? I'm just going to move my bishop. I'm going to take away this square from your king while I'm at it. But essentially, I'm putting the ball back in black's court of like, you have to move. The king can't move forward. You either have to make a trade, you have to push, you have to give me this pawn, or you have to give up ground with your king, right? That's what a waiting move does. Kind of forces that on your opponent. They go back. Okay, now he's able to jump up, right? So remember, waiting moves, especially in these bishop endings, sometimes are the key to victory, okay? So black plays a4. Capablanca comes in with his king. He goes here, he goes here, he goes here. All right, pause the video. What move would you play in this position? All right, if you had a chance to look at that, if you said king to c6, I regret to inform you, you threw away the victory again. King c6 draws the game. Look at the eval bar. Principle number 9. In the endgame, always watch out for stalemate traps. You say, Nelson, what are you talking about? Look at this. He's going to get a queen. Okay, well, we can't let that stay on the board. Obviously, we have to take it. Wait a second. The game is a draw. This is an amazing stalemate trap. This is why endgames are so tricky, right? You think, oh, it's totally winning. No, stalemate. Stalemate, stalemate, stalemate. Wow. So that's a very clever trap, right? Easy, super easy to fall into that. Super easy to fall into that. Of course, Capablanca, he was obviously very talented, 12 years old. He doesn't fall for it. He didn't play that. He played king c5. He played king c5. And the difference now is that if you do this, it's not a stalemate. The king has places to go. And so as soon as he plays king c5, his opponent actually resigns. Brilliant play by Capablanca, sacrificing the queen just to lead up into this endgame. If you haven't seen the previous videos, I'm going to link them over here, the playlist. Make sure you check that out. This is going to be a series where we go through all 60 games from Capablanca's best endings. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. As always, stay sharp, play smart, and take care.